The doorbell chimed, sending a jolt of panic through my body. I glanced at the kitchen clock. 5:45 p.m. Selina was early, of course. She always arrived ahead of schedule, probably to catch me unprepared. I wiped my flour-covered hands on my apron and rushed to the front door, plastering on a smile. "Emily, dear," Selina cooed as I opened the door. Her eyes swept over me, lingering on my messy apron. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Not at all, Selina. Happy birthday." I stepped aside, allowing her to glide past me into the foyer. "Mitch and Samantha should be home any minute." Selina's perfectly manicured eyebrow arched. "Oh? I assumed they'd be here helping you prepare for the party." I bit back a retort. "Mitch had a late meeting, and Samantha's at her piano lesson. But don't worry, everything's under control." A lie, of course. Nothing was under control. I'd been juggling work calls all day while trying to bake a cake, prepare hors d'oeuvres, and decorate the house for Selina's 60th birthday party. And where was my husband? Nowhere to be found, as usual. "I'm sure it is, dear," Selina said, her tone dripping with condescension. She followed me into the kitchen, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. My goodness, what a mess. I gritted my teeth. "I was just finishing up the cake. Would you like a glass of wine while we wait for the others?" "That would be lovely." Selina perched on a bar stool, watching me like a hawk as I poured her a glass of red. "You know, Emily, I've been meaning to have a little chat with you." My stomach clenched. Selina's little chats were never good news. "Oh," she took a sip of wine, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm concerned about you and Mitch. You seem distant lately." "We're fine," I said quickly. "Just busy with work and Samantha." Selina set down her glass with a sharp clink. "Are you sure about that? Because I happen to know something that might change your mind." My heart raced. "What are you talking about? Did you know that Mitch had an affair a few years ago?" The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. "That's not true." Selina's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Oh, but it is. And if you don't want to lose your husband and your daughter, you'd better step up your game." "Is that a threat?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Consider it friendly advice," Selina replied, standing up. "Now, where should I put my coat?" I pointed numbly toward the closet, my mind reeling. As Selina sashayed away, the front door burst open. "Mommy, we're home!" Samantha's voice rang out. Mitch appeared in the kitchen doorway, Samantha perched on his hip. "Hey, honey, sorry we're late. Traffic was a nightmare." I stared at my husband, searching his face for any sign of guilt or deception. Could Selina be telling the truth? "Emily?" Mitch frowned. "Are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a little stressed about the party." Mitch set Samantha down and came over to kiss my cheek. "Don't worry. I'm here now. What can I do to help?" As I rattled off a list of tasks, my mind raced. How could I confront Mitch about Selina's accusation? And if it was true, what would I do? The doorbell chimed again, signaling the arrival of more guests. I took a deep breath, pushing my turmoil aside. I had a party to host, after all. But as I plastered on another fake smile and headed for the door, one thought echoed in my mind. This night was far from over. The morning after Selina's party, I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee and a pounding headache. Mitch had already left for work, and Samantha was at school. The house was eerily quiet, allowing Selina's words to echo in my mind. I shook my head, trying to dismiss her accusations. Mitch wouldn't cheat on me. Would he? But as I replayed the past few months in my head, doubt crept in like a poisonous vine. The late nights at the office, the secretive phone calls, the way he'd become distant both emotionally and physically. My phone buzzed, startling me out of my thoughts. It was a text from Gibbs, my father-in-law. "Emily, are you free for lunch today? We need to talk." I hesitated before replying. Gibbs had always been kind to me, more of a father than my own had ever been. If anyone could help me make sense of this mess, it was him. "Sure, Gibbs. The usual place at 12:30? An hour later, I found myself sitting across from Gibbs in our favorite diner. He looked troubled, his usually jovial face creased with worry. "Emily, my dear," he began, reaching across the table to pat my hand. "I couldn't help but notice the tension between you and Mitch last night. Is everything all right?" I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. I don't know, Gibbs. Selina said something to me before the party, about Mitch." Gibbs's eyebrows furrowed. What did she say? She told me Mitch had an affair a few years ago. The words tumbled out in a rush, and she threatened that if I didn't step up my game, I'd lose him and Samantha. Gibbs's face darkened. That woman, he muttered, always meddling where she doesn't belong. Is it true? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Did Mitch really have an affair? Gibbs sighed heavily. Emily, I don't know for certain, but I've had my suspicions for a while now. Mitch has been different lately. Distracted, secretive. My heart sank. I've noticed it too. I just didn't want to believe it. Listen to me, Gibbs said, his voice firm. You don't deserve this uncertainty. You're a wonderful woman and an excellent mother. If my son has been foolish enough to jeopardize that, then he doesn't deserve you. Tears welled up in my eyes. What should I do, Gibbs? Let me do some digging, he replied. I have a few contacts who might be able to help us get to the bottom of this. In the meantime, try to act normal around Mitch. That means we don't want to tip him off if there's really something going on. I nodded, grateful for his support. As we finished our lunch, I felt a glimmer of hope. At least I wasn't alone in this. That evening, as I prepared dinner, Mitch came home later than usual. He barely looked at me as he loosened his tie and grabbed a beer from the fridge. How was your day? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Fine, he grunted. Just busy. Big project coming up. I watched him closely, searching for any sign of guilt or deception. But his face remained impassive, giving nothing away. Daddy! Samantha's voice rang out as she bounded into the kitchen. Can we play catch in the backyard? Mitch's face softened as he looked at our daughter. Not tonight, sweetheart. Daddy's tired. Maybe this weekend, okay? Samantha's face fell, and I felt a surge of anger. How dare he neglect our daughter like this? As we sat down to dinner, the tension was palpable. Samantha chattered away, oblivious to the strained silence between her parents. My phone buzzed with a text. It was Gibbs. Found something. Call me when you're alone. My heart raced as I excused myself from the table, claiming a work emergency. Locking myself in the bathroom, I dialed Gibbs's number with shaking hands. Emily, his voice was grave. I'm sorry, but it's true. Mitch had an affair, and I'm afraid it might not be over. The world spun around me as I gripped the sink for support. My worst fears confirmed. I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I stumbled through the next few days in a haze of disbelief and anger. Gibbs's confirmation of Mitch's affair had shattered my world, but I couldn't let it show. Not yet. I had to keep it together for Samantha's sake and to figure out my next move. At work, I found myself staring blankly at spreadsheets, unable to focus. My mind kept replaying every moment with Mitch, searching for clues I might have missed. Emily? My boss's voice snapped me back to reality. Are you all right? You seem distracted lately. I forced a smile. I'm fine, just a bit under the weather. I'll have the Johnson account finished by tomorrow, I promise. He nodded, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I had to pull myself together before I jeopardized my career, too. That evening, I picked up Samantha from her piano lesson. As we drove home, she chattered excitedly about her upcoming recital. Mommy, will you and Daddy both come to watch me play? My heart clenched. Of course, sweetie. We wouldn't miss it for the world. But would Mitch really be there? Or would he have another late meeting with his mistress? As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Mitch's car already parked. Unusual for him to be home this early. Samantha raced inside while I lingered, steeling myself for another evening of pretending everything was normal. I found Mitch in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. He looked up as I entered, his eyes bloodshot and tired. Hey, he said, his voice rough. Can we talk? My pulse quickened. What about? He took a deep breath. I think we should see a marriage counselor. I stared at him, stunned. Was this his way of confessing? Or just another manipulation? Why? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. Mitch ran a hand through his hair. Things haven't been right between us for a while now. I thought maybe talking to someone could help. I wanted to scream, to throw his betrayal in his face. But Samantha's voice drifted down from upstairs, reminding me to stay calm. Okay, I said finally. If that's what you want. Relief flooded his face, and I felt a surge of bitterness. How dare he act like the victim here? Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Gibbs. Need to see you. It's urgent. I have to go out for a bit, I told Mitch. Work emergency. He nodded, already turning back to his drink. I grabbed my keys and headed out, my mind racing. I met Gibbs at a small cafe across town. His face was grim as I sat down. "What's wrong?" I asked, fear gripping my heart. Gibbs slid a manila envelope across the table. "I'm so sorry, Emily, but you need to see this." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Mitch with a beautiful blonde woman, holding hands, kissing, entering a hotel together. The timestamps showed they were taken just last week. "It's not over," Gibbs said softly. "The affair is still ongoing." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All this time, while I'd been agonizing over a past indiscretion, Mitch had been actively cheating on me. "There's more," Gibbs continued. "I did some digging into Mitch's finances. He's been siphoning money from your joint account into a separate one. I think he might be planning to leave you." The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the edge of the table, fighting waves of nausea. "What do I do now?" I whispered. Gibbs reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You fight, Emily. You protect yourself and Samantha. And you show Mitch and Selena that you're not a woman to be trifled with." As I sat there, surrounded by evidence of my husband's betrayal, something hardened inside me. The shock and pain gave way to a cold, clear anger. Gibbs was right. It was time to fight, and God help Mitch and Selena when I did. I spent the night tossing and turning. The damning photos of Mitch and his mistress burned into my mind. By morning, I had made my decision. It was time to confront him. As Mitch prepared to leave for work, I blocked the door. "We need to talk. Now." His eyes widened at my tone. "Emily, I'm going to be late." "Sit down, Mitch," I commanded, my voice ice-cold. Surprised by my forcefulness, he complied. I tossed the envelope of photos onto the coffee table. "Care to explain these?" The color drained from his face as he flipped through the images. "Emily, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped. "I know everything. The affair, the secret bank account. How long were you planning to string me along before leaving?" Mitch's shoulders slumped. "I never meant for this to happen. It just did." "That's your excuse?" "It just happened." I laughed bitterly. "What about our vows, Mitch? What about Samantha?" At the mention of our daughter, Mitch flinched. "I love Samantha. I love you both." "Clearly not enough," I retorted. "I want you out of this house, today." Panic flashed across his face. "Emily, please, we can work this out. I'll end it with her, I swear. We can go to counseling like I suggested." I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. It was Gibbs. "Emily, I'm on my way over with Selena. She needs to face this too." My heart raced. I hadn't planned on confronting Selena yet, but maybe it was better to rip off all the Band-Aids at once. "Your parents are on their way over," I told Mitch. "I think it's time we all had a little chat." Mitch paled further. "My mother? Emily, please, let's handle this privately." The doorbell cut him off. I strode to answer it, leaving Mitch sputtering on the couch. Gibbs entered first, his face grim. Selena followed, looking confused and irritated. "What's the meaning of this, Emily? I have a busy day ahead." Her words died as she saw Mitch on the couch, the incriminating photo spread before him. "Sit down, Selena," I said, my voice steady. "We have a lot to discuss." For the next hour, I laid out everything. The affair, the financial deception, Selena's threat at her birthday party. Gibbs backed me up, providing additional evidence he'd gathered. Selena's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally, a calculated calm. "Well," she said, smoothing her skirt, "these things happen in marriages. I'm sure if Emily had been more attentive—" "Don't you dare blame this on me," I snarled, surprising even myself with my vehemence. "Your son made his choices." "And you," I turned to Mitch, "you had the audacity to suggest counseling when you were still seeing her?" Mitch hung his head. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to end it." Gibbs, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Son, I've never been more disappointed in you, and Selena, your behavior is inexcusable." Selena bristled. "Now, Gilbert, let's not be hasty." "Enough," I said, standing. "This is what's going to happen. Mitch, you're moving out, today. I'll be contacting a lawyer about divorce proceedings. Selena, you're no longer welcome in this house or around Samantha until you can treat me with respect." "You can't do this," Selena hissed. "We'll fight you for custody." I smiled coldly. "Go ahead and try. I have all the evidence I need to ensure that doesn't happen." As they all stared at me in shock, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in years, I was taking control of my life. "Now," I said, "I suggest you all leave. I have a daughter to pick up from school and a future to plan. As I watched them file out, Gibbs lingered. I'm proud of you, Emily, he said softly. You're stronger than you know. I nodded, fighting back tears. The road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to face it. For myself and for Samantha. The days following Mitch's departure were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and sleepless nights. I threw myself into work, desperate for any distraction from the implosion of my personal life. But Selina, true to form, wasn't about to let me find peace. It started with incessant phone calls, which I ignored. Then came the barrage of texts, alternating between saccharine concern and thinly veiled threats. I blocked her number, but she always found new ways to reach me. One evening, as I was helping Samantha with her homework, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Selina standing there, a false smile plastered on her face. Emily, dear, she cooed, I thought we could have a little chat. Woman to woman. I stood my ground, blocking the entrance. I have nothing to say to you, Selina. Please leave. Her smile faltered. Now don't be difficult. I'm here to help you see reason, for Samantha's sake. At the mention of my daughter, something snapped inside me. Don't you dare use Samantha as a pawn in your games, I hissed. You've done enough damage. Selina's eyes narrowed. I'm warning you, Emily. If you go through with this divorce, I'll make sure you lose everything, including Samantha. Is that a threat? I asked, my voice dangerously low. It's a promise, she replied, her mask of civility finally dropping. I have connections you can't even imagine. One word from me, and your career will be in shambles. You'll be lucky to get a job flipping burgers. I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. You really don't know when to quit, do you? I'm not that scared little girl you bullied at your birthday party anymore, Selina. I have evidence of Mitch's affair, proof of financial misconduct, and a rock-solid case for full custody. So go ahead, make your threats. I'm not backing down. Selina's face contorted with rage. She opened her mouth to retort, but I slammed the door in her face, my heart pounding. As I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath, I heard Samantha's small voice behind me. Mommy, was that Grandma? Why was she yelling? I turned to find my daughter standing in the hallway, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. In that moment, I realized I couldn't keep shielding her from the truth. She deserved to understand why her world was changing. Kneeling down to her level, I took her hands in mine. Sweetheart, we need to talk about Daddy and Grandma and why things are going to be different from now on. As I explained the situation in terms she could understand, leaving out the most painful details, I saw a mix of emotions cross her face, sadness, anger, and finally a resolve that mirrored my own. Are we going to be okay, Mommy? She asked, her voice small but steady. I pulled her into a tight hug. Yes, baby. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be strong and brave, and we're going to build a new life together, just you and me. As I held my daughter, I felt a surge of determination. Selina's threats had only strengthened my resolve. I would fight not just for myself, but for Samantha's future. That night, after tucking Samantha in, I made a decision. It was time to take control of the narrative. I couldn't let Selina spin her web of lies and manipulation any longer. I picked up my phone and dialed Gibbs's number. I need your help, I said when he answered. It's time we expose Selina for who she really is, to everyone. Gibbs's voice was grim but supportive. I'm with you, Emily. What's the plan? As I outlined my ideas, a sense of purpose filled me. The final showdown with Selina was coming, and this time, I would be the one calling the shots. The day of Selina's birthday party arrived, and with it, a storm of emotions I could barely contain. The Gibbs and I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, gathering evidence and steeling our nerves. As I dressed for the party, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Determination blazed in my eyes, replacing the fear and uncertainty that had haunted me for so long. Are you sure about this, Emily? Gibbs asked as we pulled up to the Adams' sprawling estate. I nodded, my jaw set. It's time to end this, once and for all. We entered the house to find it buzzing with guests, all orbiting around Selina like planets around a toxic sun. She spotted us immediately, her eyes narrowing as she glided over. Emily, darling, she cooed, air-kissing my cheek. How brave of you to show up, and Gilbert, always a pleasure. I forced a smile. I wouldn't miss it for the world, Selina. As the evening wore on, I bided my time watching Selina hold court among her sycophants. Mitch was there too, looking uncomfortable and avoiding my gaze. The tension in the room was palpable, a powder keg waiting for a spark. Finally, as Selina prepared to make her birthday speech, I knew it was time. I caught Gibbs's eye across the room, and he gave me a subtle nod. I stepped forward, glass in hand. "Selina, before you begin, I'd like to say a few words." A hush fell over the crowd. Selina's smile faltered for a moment before she recovered. "Of course, dear. How thoughtful of you." I took a deep breath and addressed the room. "We're here to celebrate Selina's birthday, but I think it's time we celebrated something else, the truth." Murmurs rippled through the guests. Selina's eyes flashed with anger. "Emily, this is hardly the time." "It's exactly the time," I cut her off. "For years, I've watched you manipulate and control everyone around you, Selina. You've threatened me, tried to destroy my marriage, and now you're trying to take my daughter away. But no more." I turned to the stunned crowd. "What you don't know is that Mitch has been having an affair for years, with Selina's full knowledge and approval." Gasps echoed through the room. Mitch stepped forward, his face pale. "Emily, please." "Save it, Mitch." I snapped. "I have proof, text messages, photos, financial records, all showing how you and your mother conspired to deceive me and everyone else." Selina's carefully constructed mask of civility cracked. "You ungrateful little—" "I'm not finished," I interrupted, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "Selina has been embezzling money from her own charity for years. Gibbs, would you care to elaborate?" Gibbs stepped forward, producing a thick folder. "I have documentation here showing years of financial misconduct. Selina has been using the charity as her personal piggy bank, stealing from those who need it most." The room erupted into chaos. Guests whispered furiously, some edging towards the door. Selina's face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I'll destroy you, Emily. You'll never work in this town again. I'll make sure you lose everything." I stood my ground, meeting her gaze. "No, Selina, you're the one who's lost everything. Your reputation, your son's respect, and any power you thought you had over me." Suddenly, Selina lunged at me, her manicured nails clawing at my face. I stumbled backward, shocked by her ferocity. Gibbs and several guests rushed to pull her off me. "You ruined everything," Selina shrieked, struggling against those restraining her. "This was supposed to be my night." As security guards a hysterical Selina from the room, I found myself face to face with Mitch. His eyes were pleading, filled with remorse and fear. "Emily, I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." I looked at him, the man I had once loved, now a stranger. "It's too late for sorry, Mitch. We're done." As I turned to leave, my heart pounding and adrenaline coursing through my veins, I realized this was far from over. The real battle for my daughter, my future, and my dignity was just beginning. But for the first time in years, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The aftermath of Selina's birthday party was a whirlwind of chaos. As I stood in my lawyer's office the next day, my head still spinning from the events of the previous night, I knew the real battle was just beginning. "Emily," my lawyer Sarah said gravely, "Selina and Mitch have filed for full custody of Samantha. They're claiming you're mentally unstable and unfit to be a mother." My heart plummeted. "What? How can they do that?" Sarah sighed. "They're using your outburst at the party as evidence. Plus, they've somehow gotten hold of your work records, showing your recent distraction." I felt the room closing in on me. Everything I'd fought for was slipping away. "This can't be happening," I whispered. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Gibbs. "Emily, turn on the news. Now." Sarah flicked on the office TV and my jaw dropped. There, splashed across the screen, were photos of Mitch with his mistress. Recent photos. The headline read, "Prominent Architect's Affair Exposed." "I don't understand," I said, turning to Gibbs, who had just burst into the office. "How did this get out?" Gibbs smiled grimly. "Let's just say I have friends in high places, but that's not all." He produced a USB drive. "This contains records of all of Selina's financial misdeeds, embezzlement, tax evasion, you name it, it's all here." Sarah's eyes widened as she plugged in the drive. This changes everything." As we pored over the documents, my phone rang again. It was Mitch. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Emily, please," he begged, his voice ragged. "Call off the dogs. We can work this out." I felt a surge of anger. "Work what out, Mitch? How you and your mother tried to take my daughter away. How you've been lying to me for years." I'm sorry, he said. I never wanted it to go this far. Mother, she has a way of twisting things. Please, just meet with us for Samantha's sake. I hesitated, looking at Gibbs and Sarah. They nodded encouragingly. Fine, I said. 1 hour. At the house. When I arrived, Selena and Mitch were already there, that looking haggard and defeated. Selena's usual poise was gone, replaced by a desperate, cornered look. Let's cut to the chase, I said, sitting down. I have evidence of your affair, Mitch, and your financial crimes, Selena. If you don't drop this custody suit and agree to my terms, I'll take it all public. Selena's eyes flashed. You wouldn't dare. I leaned forward, my voice steel. Try me. For a moment, I thought Selena might lunge at me again. But then, something in her seemed to deflate. What do you want? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Full custody of Samantha, I said. Mitch can have supervised visitation. Selena, you'll step down from your charity and make full restitution, and you'll both leave us alone. Mitch looked ready to protest, but Selena put a hand on his arm. We don't have a choice, she muttered. As they signed the agreement Sarah had quickly drawn up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, but it wasn't over yet. There's one more thing, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I want you both to tell Samantha the truth, about everything. She deserves to know why her family is falling apart. Mitch's face crumpled. Emily, please. She's just a child. A child who deserves honesty, I replied firmly. As we called Samantha into the room, my heart raced. This was the moment that would define our future, my daughter's and mine. I watched as confusion, then hurt, then anger flashed across her young face as Mitch stumbled through his confession. When he finished, Samantha turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. Mommy, can we go home now? I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Yes, baby, we can go home. As we walked out, leaving Mitch and Selena behind, I knew we had a long road ahead. But for the first time in months, I felt hope. We were free, and we were together. Whatever came next, we would face it as a team, just Samantha and me. 6 months after the confrontation with Mitch and Selena, I stood in our new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. Samantha was at school, and I had taken the day off to finish settling us in. As I hung a family photo, just Samantha and me now, I felt a bittersweet pang. So much had changed, but we were finally free. The doorbell rang, startling me from my reverie. I opened it to find Gibbs standing there, a warm smile on his face. Just thought I'd check in on you two, he said, stepping inside. How's the unpacking going? I sighed, gesturing at the chaos around us. Slowly but surely. It's strange, starting over like this. Gibbs nodded, his eyes full of understanding. You're doing amazingly, Emily. I'm proud of you. As we sat down for coffee, Gibbs updated me on the aftermath of our confrontation. Selena had been forced to step down from her charity, the scandal too much for the board to ignore. Mitch had lost several high-profile clients, his reputation in tatters. And how are you holding up? I asked Gibbs, knowing how painful it must be to distance himself from his son and wife. He sighed heavily. It's not easy, but I know I made the right choice. Family is about more than blood, Emily. It's about loyalty, trust, and doing what's right. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mitch. Can we talk? I miss Samantha. I showed the message to Gibbs, my hands shaking slightly. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Part of me wants to keep him away forever, but I know Samantha needs her father. Gibbs placed a comforting hand on my arm. You'll figure it out, Emily. You always do. As Gibbs left, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I had faced down Selena, stood up to Mitch, and rebuilt my life from the ground up. I could handle this, too. That evening, as Samantha and I sat down to dinner, I broached the subject gently. Sweetie, your dad wants to see you. How do you feel about that? Samantha pushed her peas around her plate, her brow furrowed in thought. Will Grandma Selena be there? No, honey. Just your dad. She nodded slowly. Oh, but can you come too, Mommy? I felt a lump form in my throat. Of course, baby. Always. As I tucked Samantha into bed that night, I marveled at her resilience. Despite everything, she still found reasons to smile, to hope. I knew then that we would be okay. The next morning, I woke up early, a sense of calm settling over me. I had an important meeting at work, my first big presentation since the divorce. As I dressed, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Gone was the uncertain, fearful woman I had been just months ago. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and unafraid to face whatever life threw her way. At work, I nailed the presentation. My boss pulled me aside afterward, a proud smile on his face. "Emily, I don't know what's changed, but whatever it is, keep it up. You're on track for that promotion we discussed." As I drove to pick up Samantha from school, I felt a sense of accomplishment wash over me. We had weathered the storm, Samantha and I, and come out stronger on the other side. Samantha bounded into the car, her face alight with excitement. "Mommy, I got the lead in the school play." I hugged her tightly, my heart swelling with pride and love. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We'll have to celebrate." As we drove home, Samantha chattering happily beside me, I realized that this moment of simple joy was what I had been fighting for all along. Not the big house or the perfect family image, but the freedom to be ourselves, to love and support each other without manipulation or deceit. That night, as I sat on our small balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, I felt truly at peace for the first time in years. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, I knew. There would be challenges, co-parenting with Mitch, helping Samantha navigate her new reality, continuing to prove myself at work. But I was ready for it all. Because now I knew my own strength, and I had the unconditional love of my daughter to sustain me. Whatever came next, we would face it together with resilience, grace, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her child. As I closed my eyes, breathing in the cool night air, I smiled. This wasn't the end of our story, it was the beginning of a new, better chapter. The shattering of glass echoed through the kitchen, followed by Harry's exasperated sigh. I closed my eyes, counting to 10 before turning to face the mess. It was the third plate this week. "Maggie, where's the dustpan?" Harry called out, not bothering to look for it himself. "Right where it always is, dear." "Under the sink," I replied, my voice strained with forced patience. As I watched him fumble with the broom, I couldn't help but wonder when my husband had become so helpless. "You know, if you'd just let me organize the cabinets my way, this wouldn't happen," he grumbled, sweeping the shards into a pile. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to remind him that his way involved shoving everything into random drawers. Instead, I focused on finishing the dishes, scrubbing perhaps a bit harder than necessary. "Oh, by the way," Harry said, dumping the broken plate into the trash, "Mom called earlier. She wants us over for dinner tomorrow night." My hands froze mid-scrub. "Tomorrow? But we have plans, remember? The Johnsons invited us for their barbecue." Harry shrugged, already heading for the living room. "We can do that another time. You know how Mom gets when we cancel." I did know, all too well. Ella, my mother-in-law, had a knack for guilt-tripping that would make a Catholic nun envious. But this was the third time this month we'd changed our plans to accommodate her whims. "Harry," I called out, following him, "don't you think it's time we set some boundaries with your mother?" He looked at me as if I'd suggested we move to Mars. "Boundaries? With Mom? Come on, Maggie. Don't be ridiculous. She's just lonely since Dad passed. It's been 5 years, Harry, and she has a busier social life than we do." Harry's face clouded over. "Look, I don't want to argue about this. We're going to Mom's tomorrow. End of discussion." I felt something snap inside me. "End of discussion? When did you become the dictator of this household? When did you become so selfish?" he shot back. "She's my mother, Maggie. She needs us." "And what about what I need?" I didn't realize I was shouting until I saw Harry flinch. "What about our marriage? When was the last time we did something just the two of us?" Harry's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, his expression softening. "I've got to take this. It's work." As he walked away, already engrossed in his call, I sank onto the couch, feeling deflated. This wasn't the man I'd married 15 years ago. That Harry had been ambitious, attentive, and most importantly, my partner. This Harry, I wasn't sure who he was anymore. My own phone chimed with a text. It was from Lily, my sister-in-law. "SOS. Need to talk. Can you meet me at Joe's Diner in 20? I hesitated, glancing towards the study where I could hear Harry's muffled voice. Making a split-second decision, I grabbed my keys. "I'm going out," I called to Harry. No response, of course. The drive to Joe's was a blur of streetlights and conflicting emotions. As I pulled into the parking lot, I spotted Lily already at our usual booth, her face pale and drawn. "Lily, what's wrong?" I slid in across from her, noting the untouched cup of coffee in front of her. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "It's Sam." And Ella. I overheard them talking. Maggie, I think they're plotting something against me. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Lily opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the diner's door chimed. We both looked up to see Harry walk in, his face a mask of fury as he spotted us. Maggie? What the hell is going on here? As Harry stormed towards our table, I realized that the quiet discontent in my marriage was about to erupt into something I wasn't sure I was prepared to face. Harry's thunderous expression sent a chill down my spine as he approached our booth. Lily shrank back, her eyes darting between us. What's going on here? Harry demanded, his voice low and dangerous. I straightened my spine, meeting his gaze. I'm having coffee with my sister-in-law. Is that a crime now? Don't play games, Maggie. You snuck out without telling me. I told you I was leaving. It's not my fault you were too busy with your work call to notice. Harry's jaw clenched. We'll discuss this at home. Come on, let's go. I glanced at Lily, who looked on the verge of tears. No, Harry. Lily needs me right now. Oh, for God's sake, he muttered. What's wrong now, Lily? Another imaginary slight from Mom. Lily flinched as if she'd been slapped. I felt my anger rising. That's enough. Harry, go home. I'll be there when I'm done here. For a moment I thought he might argue further, but then his phone buzzed again, and he glanced at it, his expression changing. Fine, don't be late. We have dinner at Mom's tomorrow, remember? As Harry stormed out, I turned back to Lily. I'm so sorry about that. Now, what were you saying about Ella and Sam? Lily's hands trembled as she clutched her coffee cup. I overheard them talking in the study last night. They were discussing ways to deal with me. Ella said I was becoming a problem, that I was turning Sam against her. I felt a surge of protective anger. What did Sam say? He agreed with her, Lily's voice broke. He said maybe it was time to consider other options, whatever that means. My mind raced. Have you confronted Sam about this? Lily shook her head. I'm scared, Maggie. You know what Ella's capable of. Remember what happened to Janet? I winced at the memory. Janet had been Sam's previous girlfriend before Lily. She'd stood up to Ella once too often, and suddenly found herself the subject of vicious rumors that ruined her reputation in town. She'd moved away soon after. We need to do something, I said, reaching across the table to squeeze Lily's hand. This can't go on. Just then, the diner's door chimed again. We both looked up to see Ella herself sweep in, her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to our disheveled appearances. Well, well, Ella said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. What a cozy little meeting. Planning another way to disappoint my boys, are we? I felt Lily stiffen beside me. Hello, Ella, I said, keeping my voice neutral. What brings you here? Ella's eyes narrowed. I was on my way home from Bridge Club when I saw your car, Maggie. Imagine my surprise when I realized you were here instead of at home with my Harry. You know how he hates to eat alone. Harry's a grown man, Ella. I'm sure he can manage dinner on his own for one night. Ella's smile turned predatory. Oh, I'm not worried about Harry. I'm more concerned about you, dear. It's not good for a wife to neglect her duties so frequently. I felt a retort building in my throat, but Lily spoke up first. We were just leaving, Ella. No need to worry about us. Ella's gaze swiveled to Lily, and I saw a flash of something cold in her eyes. Of course, dear. I'm sure Sam is wondering where you've run off to as well. You know how he worries. As Ella sauntered away to order her coffee, Lily and I exchanged glances. The weight of unspoken fears hung between us. We can't let her win, I whispered fiercely. Whatever she's planning, we need to be ready. Lily nodded, a spark of determination finally lighting her eyes. You're right. It's time we stopped being victims and started fighting back. As we left the diner, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping onto a battlefield. But for the first time in years, I felt ready for the fight. The next morning I woke to an empty bed and the sound of hushed voices from downstairs. Creeping down the stairs, I recognized Harry's low murmur and Ella's sharp tones. My stomach clenched as I strained to hear their conversation. She's becoming a problem, Harry, Ella hissed. You need to get her under control. Mom, please. Maggie's just going through a phase. She'll come around. I bit back a bitter laugh. A phase? Is that what he thought this was? She's poisoning Lily against us, Ella continued. If we're not careful, they'll ruin everything we've worked for. My blood ran cold. What were they talking about? What had they worked for? Before I could hear Harry's response, the front door opened, and Sam's voice joined the mix. I retreated upstairs, my mind racing. Later that afternoon, I met Lily at the park, away from prying eyes and ears. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. "Maggie, I can't take it anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Last night, Sam, I felt a surge of protective anger. "Did he hurt you?" Lily shook her head. "Not physically, but he told me I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid. He said if I didn't stop causing trouble, he'd have to take action." "That sounds like a threat," I said, my jaw clenching. "It gets worse," Lily continued. "I found these in his desk drawer." She handed me a stack of papers. As I flipped through them, my heart sank. Bank statements, property deeds, all in Sam's name alone. "He's been hiding assets," I muttered. Lily nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I think he's planning to leave me, Maggie, and if he does, I'll have nothing." I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "We won't let that happen. We'll fight back together." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Harry. "Where are you? Mom's waiting for us." I'd completely forgotten about the dinner at Ella's. "I have to go," I told Lily, "but this isn't over. We'll figure something out." When I arrived at Ella's house, the tension was palpable. Harry shot me a disapproving look as I slipped into my seat at the dining table. "Nice of you to join us, dear," Ella said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We were just discussing the future of the family business." I blinked in surprise. "I didn't know there was a family business." Sam chuckled. "Oh, Maggie, always the last to know, aren't you?" I felt a flash of anger. Maybe if someone bothered to tell me things, I wouldn't be. Now, Ella interjected smoothly. "Let's not bicker. We have important matters to discuss. Harry, Sam, why don't you tell Maggie about our plans?" As Harry and Sam launched into an explanation about some property development scheme, my mind whirled. This was what they'd been working on? And they'd kept me in the dark all this time? "Of course," Ella continued, "we'll need everyone's cooperation, including Lily's." I stiffened. "What do you mean?" Ella's smile turned predatory. "Well, we'll need to use some of the properties in her name. For tax purposes, you understand." Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The hidden assets, the whispered conversations, the threats against Lily. They were planning to use her, then discard her. "No," I said, my voice ringing out in the sudden silence. "Absolutely not." Harry's face darkened. "Maggie, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I snapped. "You're all planning to rob Lily blind. Well, it's not going to happen, not while I'm around." As I stood to leave, Ella's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Sit down, Maggie. You have no idea what you're dealing with." I met her gaze, feeling a surge of defiance. "No, Ella, you have no idea what you're dealing with. This ends now." As I stormed out of the house, I could feel the weight of their stares on my back. I knew I'd just declared war, but for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. The battle was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. The days following my confrontation at Ella's house were a blur of tense silences and heated arguments. Harry barely spoke to me, spending most of his time on hushed phone calls or locked away in his study. I knew I was walking a dangerous line, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at stake. One evening, as I was sorting through old papers in our bedroom, I stumbled upon a folder I'd never seen before. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing a stack of legal documents. As I scanned the pages, my blood ran cold. "Harry!" I shouted, storming downstairs with the folder clutched to my chest. "What the hell is this?" He looked up from his laptop, his face paling as he saw what I was holding. "Maggie, I can explain." "Explain?" I threw the papers onto the coffee table. "Explain how you've been secretly transferring our assets into accounts I can't access. Explain how you've been funneling money into this so-called family business without my knowledge or consent." Harry stood, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "It's not what you think. We're just protecting our interests." "Our interests?" I laughed bitterly. "Or your mother's." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Help. Sam's gone crazy. He's threatening to take everything." My heart raced. "I have to go," I told Harry, already grabbing my keys. "Where are you going?" he demanded, following me to the door. I whirled to face him. "To help your brother's wife, since apparently none of you care about her well-being." I arrived at Lily's house to find her sitting on the front steps, her face buried in her hands. When she looked up, I saw a bruise forming on her cheek. Oh, Lily, I breathed, pulling her into a hug. What happened? Through her tears, she told me how Sam had come home in a rage, accusing her of conspiring against the family. When she'd confronted him about the hidden assets, he'd lost control. He said if I didn't sign over everything to him, he'd make sure I ended up with nothing, she sobbed. Maggie, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I held her tightly, my mind racing. We need to get you out of here. Pack a bag. You're coming with me. As Lily gathered her things, I made a series of phone calls. First to a lawyer friend who owed me a favor, then to a women's shelter I'd volunteered at years ago. Finally, to my sister across state lines. By the time Sam's car pulled into the driveway, we were ready to leave. He stumbled out, his face contorted with anger when he saw us. Where do you think you're going? He slurred, blocking our path to my car. I stepped in front of Lily, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Move, Sam. You don't want to do anything you'll regret. He lunged forward, but I was ready. The self-defense classes I'd taken after college finally paid off as I sidestepped his clumsy attack, using his momentum to send him sprawling. Let's go, I told Lily, ushering her into the car. As we drove away, I could see Sam shouting and gesticulating in the rearview mirror. My phone buzzed incessantly. Harry, no doubt, having been alerted by his brother. What now? Lily asked, her voice small and scared. I took a deep breath, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. Now we fight back. No more playing nice, no more being the obedient wives they expect us to be. It's time to show Ella and her boys exactly what we're capable of. As we crossed the city limits, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I knew that by driving away, I was leaving behind the life I'd known for the past 15 years. But looking at Lily's determined face beside me, I also knew I was driving towards something far more important. Freedom, justice, and the chance to reclaim our lives. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The war had begun, and we were ready for battle. The safe house my sister had arranged for us was small but secure. As days turned into weeks, Lily and I settled into a routine, strategizing our next moves and supporting each other through the emotional turmoil. We'd both filed for divorce, and the legal battle was just beginning. One afternoon, as we pored over financial documents, my phone rang. It was Harry. Maggie, please, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Come home, we can work this out. I felt a pang in my chest, but steeled myself. There's nothing to work out, Harry. You made your choice. Mom's sick, he blurted out. She needs us, all of us. I froze, my mind racing. Was this another manipulation, or was Ella truly ill? Before I could respond, I heard Ella's voice in the background. Tell her I need one of my daughters-in-law to move in and take care of me. It's the least they can do after tearing this family apart. My blood boiled. Even now, Ella was trying to control us. Put her on the phone, I demanded. Maggie, dear, Ella's saccharine voice oozed through the speaker. I hope you've come to your senses. This little rebellion of yours has gone on long enough. Rebellion? I scoffed. Is that what you call standing up for ourselves? Don't be dramatic, Ella chided. Now I expect either you or Lily to be here by tomorrow. I need round-the-clock care, and who better than family? I glanced at Lily, who was shaking her head vehemently. That's not going to happen, Ella, I said firmly. Oh. Her tone turned icy. Well, perhaps you should consider the consequences of your refusal. I'd hate for certain information to come to light. My heart raced. What are you talking about? Let's just say I know things about both you and Lily that you'd rather keep private. Your choice, dear. The line went dead, leaving me stunned. What is it? Lily asked, her face pale. What did she say? I relayed the conversation, watching Lily's expression shift from fear to anger. She's bluffing, Lily insisted. She can't know anything that bad. But doubt gnawed at me. What if Ella did have something on us? Could we risk calling her bluff? Just then, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number containing a video file. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. The grainy footage showed me, years ago, in a heated argument with my former boss. I watched horror as my past self shoved him, causing him to stumble back against his desk. Oh, God, I whispered. I'd forgotten about that. Lily peered at the screen. What is it? It was right before I quit my last job, I explained. He'd been harassing me for months. That day, he tried to... I just snapped. I never reported it because I was afraid no one would believe me. Another text came through. Imagine if this got out. Assault charges could complicate your divorce, couldn't they? Lily's phone chimed next. She gasped as she read the message. They know about the money I've been sending my sister, she said, her voice shaking. The money from the joint account with Sam, they're threatening to accuse me of embezzlement. We sat in stunned silence, the weight of Ella's threats hanging over us. What do we do now? Lily asked, her voice small. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. We'd come so far, fought so hard. Could we really let Ella win now? But as I looked at Lily, saw the fear and determination in her eyes, I knew we couldn't back down. We'd weathered too much to give up now. We fight, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We call her bluff, and we fight back harder than ever. No more running, no more hiding. It's time to take the battle to them. Lily nodded, a spark of hope igniting in her eyes. Together? I reached out and squeezed her hand. Together. They have no idea what we're capable of. As we began to formulate our plan, I felt a surge of resolve. Ella thought she had the upper hand, but she'd underestimated us for the last time. The real war was just beginning, and we were ready to win. The morning after Ella's threats, I woke to find Lily pacing our small living room, her face ashen. Maggie, she whispered, her voice trembling, I need to tell you something I've been hiding. My heart raced as I sat up, bracing myself for whatever bombshell she was about to drop. What is it, Lily? She collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. Sam's been having an affair, she choked out, for years. And Ella's been covering for him. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long have you known? I suspected for a while, but I found proof last month, Lily confessed. Emails, hotel receipts. And then I overheard Ella talking to Sam about keeping it quiet. She said it was for the good of the family. Rage boiled inside me. That manipulative witch, I seethed. And Sam? How could he do this to you? Lily's sobs intensified. There's more, she whispered. The woman he's been seeing, she's pregnant. The room spun around me as the full weight of Lily's revelation sank in. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about a child, an innocent life caught in the crossfire of our family's dysfunction. We need to confront them, I said, my voice hard with determination. All of them. No more hiding, no more secrets. Lily nodded, wiping her eyes. But how? They'll just deny everything. A plan began to form in my mind. We gather evidence, everything we can find, and then we hit them where it hurts, their precious family business. We spent the next few days in a frenzy of activity. I called in favors from old colleagues, dug through financial records, and pieced together a damning picture of fraud and deceit that went far beyond Sam's affair. As we prepared to confront our husbands and Ella, my phone buzzed with a text from Harry. We need to talk. Meet me at the park in an hour. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I arrived, Harry was pacing nervously by the fountain. Maggie, he said, his voice strained. I know things have been bad between us, but I need you to come home. Mom's condition is getting worse, and the business... We're in trouble. Big trouble. I steeled myself against the flicker of sympathy I felt. What kind of trouble, Harry? He ran a hand through his hair. Financial irregularities. The auditors are asking questions. If we don't sort this out, we could lose everything. For a moment, I was tempted to tell him everything I knew, to offer help. But then I remembered Lily's tears, Ella's threats, the years of manipulation. I'm sorry, Harry, I said, my voice steady, but I can't help you, not anymore. His face darkened. You don't understand. If this gets out, it won't just be us who suffer. Think about the employees, their families. Don't you dare try to guilt me, I snapped. You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. As I turned to leave, Harry grabbed my arm. Maggie, please. I love you. I wrenched my arm free, tears stinging my eyes. If you loved me, you wouldn't have let your mother control our lives. You wouldn't have lied to me for years. What are you talking about? Harry's face paled. I know everything, Harry. About the business, about Sam's affair. And I know you've been hiding things from me, too. Harry's expression shifted from confusion to fear. Maggie, whatever you think you know. Save it, I cut him off. Lily and I are done being your family's doormats. We're taking control of our lives, and if that means bringing down this house of cards you've built, so be it. As I walked away, leaving Harry stunned and silent, my phone buzzed again. It was Lily. Maggie, she gasped, her voice thick with tears. "I just got a call from the hospital. It's Ella. She's had a heart attack." I froze, the weight of everything crashing down on me. In that moment, I realized we'd reached the point of no return. Whatever happened next would change our lives forever. "I'm on my way," I told Lily, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's time to end this, once and for all." The hospital corridor seemed endless as Lily and I rushed towards Ella's room. My mind raced with conflicting emotions: concern for a woman I'd once considered family, anger at her manipulations, and fear of what awaited us. As we rounded the corner, we saw Harry and Sam huddled outside Ella's room, their faces drawn with worry. They looked up as we approached, surprise and relief flickering across their features. "Maggie, Lily," Harry said, his voice hoarse. "You came." Before I could respond, a nurse emerged from Ella's room. "She's asking for you all," she said softly. We filed into the room, the tension palpable. Ella lay in the hospital bed, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. But as her eyes met mine, I saw a flash of the old steel. "Well," she rasped, "I suppose it took me nearly dying to bring this family back together." I felt Lily stiffen beside me. "We're here out of concern, Ella," I said carefully. "But don't think for a moment that this changes anything." Ella's lips curved into a weak smile. "Always the fighter, aren't you, Maggie? But there are things you don't know. Things that—" Suddenly, Lily stepped forward, her face flushed. "No more secrets," she said, her voice trembling. "No more lies. I know about Sam's affair, Ella. I know you've been covering for him." The room fell silent. Sam's face drained of color while Harry looked between us in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Harry demanded. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "It's not just Sam, Harry. We know about the financial irregularities in the business. We know about the fraud." Harry's eyes widened in shock. "How did you?" "That's enough." Ella's voice cracked like a whip, startling us all. She struggled to sit up, her eyes blazing. "You ungrateful girls have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family." "Sacrificed?" I scoffed. "You've manipulated and lied to us for years." As the accusations flew, the room descended into chaos. Sam and Harry tried to defend themselves, while Ella alternated between pleas for understanding and threats. In the midst of the turmoil, Lily's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then gasped. "Maggie," she whispered, showing me the screen. It was an email from our lawyer. Attached were documents proving not only Sam's infidelity, but also Harry's. My world tilted on its axis as I scanned the evidence: hotel receipts, intimate messages, even photos. I felt as if I'd been plunged into icy water. All this time, while I'd been fighting to save my marriage, Harry had been betraying me too. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice breaking as I turned to Harry. His face crumpled. "Maggie, I can explain, but I was beyond explanations." Years of pent-up anger, hurt, and betrayal surged through me. "No," I said, my voice gaining strength. "No more explanations. No more chances. Lily and I are done." Ella struggled to sit up, her face contorted with rage. "You can't just walk away. Think of the scandal, the shame." "The only shame here is what you've done to this family," Lily said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. I turned to Lily, seeing my own pain and determination reflected in her face. "We're leaving," I said, "for good this time." As we walked towards the door, Sam called out, "You'll never survive without us. You have nothing." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "We have each other," I said, not bothering to look back. "And that's more than enough." With that, Lily and I stepped out of the room, leaving behind the shattered remains of our old lives. As the door closed on the sounds of Ella's angry shouts and our husband's pleas, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. "What now?" Lily asked, her voice small but determined. I squeezed her hand, drawing strength from our shared resolve. "Now, we start over, on our own terms." As we walked out of the hospital into the bright sunlight, I knew the hardest part of our journey was still ahead, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Whatever challenges awaited us, Lily and I would face them together, stronger than ever. 2 weeks after our hospital confrontation, Lily and I stood outside Ella's sprawling mansion, our hearts pounding. We'd received a summons, a final attempt, no doubt, to manipulate us back into the fold. But this time we were ready. "Are you sure about this?" Lily whispered, her hand trembling in mine. I squeezed her fingers reassuringly. "Absolutely. It's time to end this once and for all." As we entered, the tension in the air was palpable. Harry, Sam, and Ella sat in the living room, their faces a mix of anger, fear, and desperation. Ella, looking frail but determined, spoke first. "Girls, I'm glad you've come to your senses. Now let's discuss how we can move past this unpleasantness." I felt a surge of anger at her dismissive tone. "There's nothing to discuss, Ella. We're here to tell you that we're filing for divorce." The room erupted into chaos. Sam leapt to his feet, his face red with rage. "You can't do this. Think of the scandal, the shame." Harry, pale and shaken, pleaded. "Maggie, please. We can work this out. I'll do anything." But it was Ella's reaction that surprised me most. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that sent chills down my spine. "You foolish girls," she spat. "You think you can just walk away? I built this family, this empire. I won't let you destroy it." Lily stepped forward, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "You're the one who destroyed it, Ella. With your lies, your manipulations. We're just finally breaking free." As accusations flew and tempers flared, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I realized that this moment, this confrontation, was what we'd been building towards for years. "Enough," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "We're not here to argue. We're here to tell you that it's over. We have evidence of your infidelities, your financial fraud. If you try to fight us on this, we'll take it all public." The color drained from their faces as the full impact of our words sank in. Harry slumped in his chair, defeated. Sam paced like a caged animal. But Ella's eyes blazed with a fury I'd never seen before. "You ungrateful little—" she began, rising from her chair. But before she could finish, Lily interrupted, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "No, Ella. We're not ungrateful. We're survivors. And we're done letting you control our lives." In that moment, looking at Lily's determined face, I felt a surge of pride and love for my sister-in-law. We'd been through hell together, and we'd come out stronger. "This is your last chance," I said, addressing all three of them. "Accept the divorce terms we've proposed, or we'll see you in court. And trust me, you don't want that." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Harry spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from us?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what came next. "We want our freedom, a fair division of assets, and your word that you'll never try to contact us again." Sam opened his mouth to argue, but Ella held up a hand, silencing him. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the formidable woman she once was, the woman who had held this family in her iron grip for so long. "You've won," she said, her voice laced with bitterness. "Take what you want and go." As Lily and I turned to leave, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. Years of resentment, fear, and anger began to melt away, replaced by a sense of possibility. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Lily turned to me, tears glistening in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. "We're free." I pulled her into a tight hug, feeling my own eyes well up. "Yes, we are, and we did it together." As we walked away from the house that had been our prison for so long, I felt a sense of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time it was ours to choose. "So," Lily said, a small smile playing on her lips. "What now?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Now we live, Lily. On our own terms, by our own rules. The world is waiting for us." Hand in hand, we walked towards our new future, leaving behind the shadows of our past. We had faced our demons, confronted our fears, and emerged victorious. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we could face them. Together, as sisters, as survivors, as women who had reclaimed their power and their lives. The end was just the beginning, and I couldn't wait to see what came next.